Okay, hi everyone. There should be a couple people trickling in, but I didn't want to have you guys waiting in the waiting room for so long. Um, we have some people from the Boston Women's Heritage Trail coming to speak with us and to present with us, or to present to us. So that should be very exciting. And that's really all we have on the agenda. I sent you all meeting minutes. Maybe were you guys able to see it? It was on the Google Calendar invite. Yeah, thank you, John. If not, that's okay. Because I don't think there's enough of us anyway. So yeah, all right. So I will unmute you guys and have the Boston Women Heritage Trail group present, introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do.
Hi, I'll start. I'm Meg Campbell, and I would say that it'd be super helpful for us if you could just, say hello, your name and your organization, because I know this is quite an impressive array of folks here.
Totally. Okay, well, we can start with Nat.
Hey there, I'm Nat Shidley. I'm with Revolutionary Spaces. If you don't know us, we're the organization that cares for and interprets the Old State House and Old South Meeting House.
Yeah, thank you. Go to Sam.
Good afternoon. Sam Tully Chambers with the Boston Foundation.
Karen.
Everybody, I'm Karen Goodfellow. I'm in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, and I'm the Director of Transformative Art and Monuments, and I use the She Series.
Ferris.
Good afternoon. I'm Ferris Gray. I am on the Sagamore of the Massachusetts Tribe at Ponkapoog.
Esther.
Hi, I'm Esther. I'm the Senior Program Manager at Everyone 250 and also at Embrace Boston.
Yes. Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. We're just introducing ourselves and our organization.
Oh, hi, I'm Suzanne from the Freedom Trail Foundation.
Thank you.
Hi,
John.
everybody.
John Borders of Fourth. I oversee tourism, sports, and entertainment for the city. Hello, everyone.
Kiara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiara Singleton from the Royal House and Slave Quarters.
Thank you. I hope I didn't miss any of the main subcommittee members, but we also have Joan.
Hi, I'm Joan Alacqua. I'm the Executive Director of the History Project. We're Boston's Queer Community Archives, and I'm actually on the Archives Timelines and Curricula. I think that's our group subcommittee, but happy to be here.
Thank you. And then I know we have some other participants, so I'll just ask them to quickly introduce themselves. Allison.
Hi, everyone. Allison Pulteness from the Fenway News. Interested to hear the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And then I think we have Sydney.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Salazar. I'm a first-year preservation student at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm glad to be sitting in today.
Thank you. And then I think the last person that I have on here is Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Arsenault. I'm the Manager of Government Affairs for the Boston Chamber of Commerce, and I'm just sitting in for Celia Richard today.
Great. Thank you so much. And then I just saw Kathy join. Kathy, we're introducing ourselves and what we do in our organization.
Hi there, I'm Kathy Coteritas, and I'm Director of the Office of Historic Preservation.
All right. Thank you. I think that's everyone.
Hey, thank you so much. This is Mary Smoyer, and a longtime board member and retired teacher. So, first of all, we're just really thrilled to be here. It's really an honor to be all represent so many different dimensions of bringing forward these important narratives that we all believe in. So I just am going to tell you the very beginning of the Boston Women's Heritage Trail was that. Can you see our screen? Do you
yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay. Great technical question. Back in 1986, I was the research director for the working for Senator Edward Burke at the State House for the Senate Healthcare Committee. And my then 8-year-old daughter was for some reason, I needed to bring her to work. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. And so I sent her on a tour of the State House, and she came back quite indignant and said, "Mom, there are no women. There's a statue from a nurse's hall, but it's just a generic nurse." And she's been saying generic, but it's just a statue of somebody, doesn't say any names. And inside the State House, there were no women. And so, not too long before, Representative Byron Rushing had started the African American History Trail, and that had been an inspiration. I kind of just planted that idea, thinking, well, you know, that's a good idea. Why isn't there a women's trail like that? And then I had the fortune to go over to work for the Boston Public Schools. My heart, I found, was in education more than the State House. And there was a Title IX grant, and I was working for Deanna Lam and the district superintendent. She said, "Meg, do you have any ideas for what we could do for the Title IX grant?" And I said, "Well, you know, what about a history trail that is developed by teachers and students working with historians?" And we were funded, and that's where Mary did the picture. So she's gonna give you an overview of our past, and I'll talk about our future.
Okay, hello, everybody. Nice to be here. I have a few minutes to summarize 35 years. So I'll go for it. So we got $100,000 from the Women's Educational Equity Act. And here you see our 2006 guidebook and a picture of our opening in 1990 at Old South Meeting. So first of all, who are we? We're a board of volunteers, about 15 to 20 women, mostly teachers, librarians, and historians. And we've been working together since 1989. Several of us have been on the board since 1989. So it's been a long and important community effort. So as of now, we have 18 walking trails, 15 organized geographically, and 3 by theme. And we have 6 more trails blazed by students. And of course, now we have a website, which we will show you later. We had a director for 1.5 years who did an amazing job with teacher workshops, 2 big events, one at Old South and one at Faneuil Hall, with BPS students and teachers. And then we ran out of funding. So we took it on ourselves, once in a while having funding to hire a consultant. Here are some of the things we've done over the decades. Okay. So these are our first 3 guidebooks. The first one on the left was 1991, and so was the second one with a little different cover. And that had 4 trails: Beacon Hill, downtown, South Cove, Chinatown, and the North End. And then our second guidebook on the right was in 1999. So 8 years later, and we added the Back Bay. And then, next slide, we had our third guidebook, 2006. And by then, frankly, we were all pretty exhausted. So that's the last one that we've published. Wait a minute. So this time we added the South End Trail, and we divided the Back Bay into East and West. And this is the ribbon cutting for our South End Trail in 2005. How do we do these trails? Well, we researched. There was no internet. We were going to libraries. We were reading microfiche, etc. We consulted with historians. We advertised in the paper for suggestions. We had big meetings and little meetings. We were astounded to get 150 nominations for women that should be celebrated. And we enlisted Dr. Polly Kaufman to put it all together. Polly was head of the BPS libraries then, and she had a PhD in women's history focused on the Boston School Committee. She also had a mind like a computer. So she sorted all the women geographically, and a group of us helped write the guidebooks. Okay. Part of the original goal, the grant that Meg wrote, was to select 10 notable Boston women. And I think maybe part of the grant, Meg, one idea was to make a little trail of them around the Boston Common. Well, by that time, we had 150 nominations of women, and Polly quickly led us to the idea of having walking trails to shadow and expand the Freedom Trail and the Black Heritage Trail. So then we increased the number of notable women we wanted from 20 and then to 21, and the Boston Public School students voted. Their number one choice was Phyllis Wheatley. With plenty of brainstorming and discussion, we chose 21 women. We wrote a short bio of each woman, including quotes from her and activities related to her life. And here you see the curriculum on the left, and which is now on our website, and a photo collage of the 21 women that we chose. We also published 2 map brochures. One is general highlights, and the other Road to the Vote, the Boston Women's Suffrage Trail. And we started giving guided tours, which we still give. Several of us enjoy giving tours. Okay. Next, we initiated a student trail project. Students and teachers blaze trails around their school. This is the Blackstone School. So it is a South End trail blazed in 1994. This is the Harvard Kent School in Charlestown, marching to advertise their trail. This is at the Dearborn School in Roxbury in 1995. Did a trail around the Dearborn School. This is the Trotter School in Roxbury in 1999, including on the right a little coloring book that the students made with a page for each woman that other students could color in, and you can see that the students did the drawing for the coloring book and also chose the name. And we had t-shirts and hats. And then next slide, the students could guide us around the neighborhood. They're talking about Muriel Snowden. So there's a student giving a presentation to other students about Muriel Snowden. And each student trail had a little brochure. That's the stepping back. That's the Roxbury Trotter one. We also did projects at the Agassiz School in Jamaica Plain. And with the National Park Service, Junior Ranger Guides. And with Citizen Schools, a summer program around Phyllis Wheatley. And with after school clubs with Citizen Schools. This is Fern Cunningham with her statue, Family Circle. And then we did a lot of teacher workshops, and they were, a lot of them were sponsored by Impact 2, led by Barbara Licurdo. And so we participated in a lot of workshops, and we also led a lot of workshops around professional development and also networking to share our information so it could get into the schools. We sponsored an art contest called About Face, where Boston Public School students were encouraged to redesign the USA currency. We had some great entries. And we worked with the Bostonian Society. They had a wonderful initiative to put up more markers around the city to increase and diversify the markers that were on the buildings in Boston. Here you see the Phyllis Wheatley marker in Chinatown, where she landed enslaved in 1773. And then also a marker on the home of Amy Beach, a renowned musician who lived in Boston most of her life. She was a performer and a composer. And we worked with the Boston Symphony Orchestra and the Esplanade to get Amy Beach's name added to the hat shell. So as of 2000, Beach's name is there along with the names of 87 male composers. We could probably use a few more. We marched in a suffrage parade in 1995 for the 75th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. We wrote and performed various scripts. This is called The Final Farewell. It's a tribute to Abigail Adams. One of the board members wrote the script. Another one made the dresses, believe it or not, from scratch with no pattern. And 5 of us performed this several times. We wrote letters to the editor And we were interviewed, Meg and I, for Yvonne Abraham's column as we campaigned to have Alma Lewis's name on the new Arts Academy in the Fenway. In the last count that I have, we only have 10 schools named for women and 81 schools named for men and 40 schools with generic names. I'm happy to say that this year, without our help, as far as I know, Meg, BCLA, BBS High School, did we help?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, with our help, BCLA was renamed for Ruth Batson, the legendary local activist. So we may have 11 schools named for women now, but we need a lot more named for women. And we've collaborated with such a wide range of organizations that it would be too many to list. But here's a sample. We met with people who were doing signage on the waterfront. We did a performance of Women of Brook Farm. We worked with Unbound Visual Arts, Brighton Historical Society. We gave classes at BU's Evergreen program for lifelong learners. We gave OLLI classes at UMass Boston for lifelong learners. We worked with the Landsmarks Orchestra, which did a whole program around Phyllis Wheatley. We did a trail for the Nichols House Museum on Beacon Hill. We worked with the Rose Kennedy Greenway to blaze a trail around Rose Kennedy's life. We worked recently with AKA Alpha Kappa Alpha to put a sign up about one of our first presidents, Sylvia McDowell at Simmons, and we worked with the Museum of Fine Arts and a lot more. Oh, and go back to that one. Sorry. And we also worked with the Chamber of Commerce worked with them doing the Historic Women Trailblazers of Massachusetts booklet. And then we also worked on public art. We've been on committees and at celebrations involved with public art. You can go back one. In the South End, this is Step on Board by Fern Cunningham and some students visiting it, Step on Board. In the State House, one of our board members led a campaign to have this mural, which is a little blurry in the picture, but 9 Notable Women, it's called, and it's on loan from Simmons College. It's on the 4th floor of the State House now. We're trying to fix what Meg's daughter found in 1986. And then in 1999, next slide, a mural was installed called Hear Us, dedicated to 6 women who helped improve the public life of Massachusetts, mostly before women could vote. And the Boston Women's Memorial on Commonwealth Avenue, which honors Abigail Adams, Lucy Stone, and Phyllis Wheatley. We blazed a trail related to that statue on the next slide and developed a curriculum using primary source materials so that teachers could study the different women in the memorial with their students. And then in 2023,
yes,
at Meg's initiative, we added something called Talking Statues.
Yes, and when the city had decided that they would allow a woman statue on the Commonwealth Mall, there hadn't been one, and really, I want to give a real shout out. Angela Menino was really instrumental, and Marie Turley, of getting this. But you know, our group helped as it could. But anyway, Meredith Bergman was the sculptor, and the city had said they would put her name on it, but 20 years later, the name was never on it. So if you go back to that little thing of that little piece right there, took about 3 years of work to get that there. And what's unusual about that is, 1, we finally got her name on it. 2 is this talking statues concept, which I'll explain in a minute. And 3, it's got a QR code, which at the moment was just like so controversial, and would it just destroy the aesthetic beauty of the Commonwealth Mall to have that little tiny QR code. So we fought really hard to get it that. I mean, it's small, but it's something. So the talking statues idea is you put your QR code Yeah, go to the next one.
Okay.
And you see that these three, one reason it took us a long time was to try to schedule these amazing women was really challenging, but we had wonderful, again, pro bono sound engineers working with us, and a script writer actually out of Hollywood. And we just had an array of people, and a fabulous director who again gave her time to work with Mayor Wu, Attorney General Andrea Campbell, and Congresswoman Presley to read these monologues, short monologues, but so that when you go there and you put your QR code on and you're whatever, 12 years old, and you have no idea who Lucy Stone is, now you hear Lucy Stone acting out. You hear Michelle Wu kind of channeling, I'd say, rather than acting, but channeling the voice of Lucy Stone. And that project got us much more publicity than we were accustomed to. As we were mostly been in schools and kind of under the radar, but this was very exciting. And okay, just to the next slide. As a result of that, we did some hard thinking and some strategic thinking that the organization should really kind of go to the next level and get its own 501c3. Colson Stores was very, very generous in pro bono legal work, and that we would also, Jill Shaw from the Shaw Family Foundation reached out to us, having heard about, read the publicity around the talking statues, and said that they were going to do an incubator project for a nonprofit, and would we like to be that first project? We of course said yes, and Sam here has been our in-kind pro bono wizard, helping us in so many ways. We get them for a year and a half, and we're sitting here in the beautiful offices of Shaw. And it was actually Sam's idea to come up with another way to reach out to people, which is to do sidewalk stories. And we've been beta testing these sidewalk markers and in Dorchester and in Jamaica Plain, and they've been very, very successful. And we think this is a way, I think everyone on this call understands how difficult it is to get most people think, I might just put markers everywhere. It's not that easy. And this has been frankly, a clever workaround, and also engaging with, wonderful artists. We put the call out for artists for this and got 35 women artists from the area, all of whom would have done a great job. So we partnered with the Muniz Academy for the Margarita Muniz, and then we did a pop-up at the Common Square Library, features in local papers. So that is something that we really want to grow in the future. Next. And we're very, very excited about our latest collaborative, which is with the Cedar Grove Cemetery. And this really, hats off to Joyce Linehan, who really, this was her brainchild. And Joyce, she doesn't just have an idea, she makes it happen. On our very first trail on Beacon Hill, we had put on that trail the home for aged colored women. It's at 27 Myrtle Street, very close to Joy Street. It's now owned by Rogerson, the kind of senior living people. And we put it on there because we'd heard of it, but we didn't know, our knowledge was thin, I'd say. Joyce was out walking during the pandemic with her dog in the Cedar Grove Cemetery and came across a marker, and it said, home for aged colored women. Well, what is that? And then she found another one. And then she started asking around, and the Cedar Grove Cemetery is a privately owned cemetery. So, but they were very cooperative in terms of, we don't know too much. We just know there's basically a mass grave, and none of the women were named. So it was quite fortuitous that when the home was founded in 1860 by Black and white abolitionists, opened in 1864 and closed in the 1940s, but all of the records that they had were given to the Mass Historical Society. And Joyce reached out to Dr. Carolyn Crockett at MIT, who enlisted her students to do the painstaking research, which is still continuing. I don't want to, we're still in this project, but have identified so far 130 of the women who are buried here. So go to the next one. So there's there's the marker. And the students came in the spring, and the MIT students, and planted those flowers around it, and then just read the names, because the names had never been spoken in that cemetery. And the Friends of Cedar Grove came to the Women's Heritage Trail and asked us to be the lead on the project and to take it over. They're volunteers, they don't have an organization. The conversation started out, would you be our fiscal sponsor? And it ended up, I guess we're real partners now. And we are very excited. We're aiming to work with ECLA Homes on a public art project this summer, and we haven't heard on the funding, but we're very, very hopeful. And then, of course, long term, thinking about a very innovative memorial. I think Brian Stevenson is probably the preeminent leader on thinking about the most creative ways to do to honor our history. It doesn't have to just be statues. So it can be art, it can be music, all kinds of things. But anyway, that's where we are right now in the process. And we also are in the midst of hiring. We've been raising money. Welcome your suggestions on that front. As you probably can appreciate, this is not, it's just, valuing women's history is not widely shared. It's not in the drinking water yet. I'll put it that way. So we've been hard at work at that, but really seriously welcome your suggestions. But we have been interviewing, and I've just actually this morning offered position to somebody. We hope that's all going to work out. We can't wait next time for that person to be on this call. But we were really thrilled that we had over 30 applicants. So the people have been out there in the forest working on these things, but so that's where we are. So we'd be happy to take any questions and talk to you all, and kind of definitely see ourselves as kindred spirits here. That's it.
Thank you so much. That was great. I'll open it up for questions.
Oh, you know what? I want to say one thing. I meant to mention this. Well, two things I want to say. Sylvia McDowell, Mary mentioned Sylvia McDowell. I don't know if anybody knew Sylvia, but she was a librarian. She worked as a librarian at the Schlesinger Library. And because of her, all of our papers are archived there and will continue to be. I wanted to share that. And then just this morning, one of the lawyers at Coulson Stores were having a brainstorming session, and he suggested us thinking about ourselves as a citywide museum. I have to say, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I love that idea. So I want to be in the museum guild now. Questions? Comments?
I can go. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. I want to go back to earlier in the presentation, you mentioned that the home for aged colored women, is that correct?
That's what it was called.
Is now a senior living facility.
Well, it's owned by Rogerson, which is a senior living. That building itself is actually, they own it, but they rent it lease it to MGH for housing for families they're kind of like modest housing for people who are going there for surgery for the family members. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
But I haven't been inside, and I just learned that. I just recently talked to them about that. So we'll get a tour, if you're interested in a tour. I really want to see this place.
Yeah, my question is there any partnership between, Rogerson and you all? I think that would,
Yes, well, we're starting that conversation. That's why I'm going. They were very excited they're really excited. We don't have a formal partnership yet, but certainly makes sense. And they're very well regarded. Oh, the archives are the Schlesinger Library, which is at Harvard University, the history of women, and it's the largest history library for women's history in the country. Very quiet group.
Yes. Nat?
Yeah, we've been talking about what the role of the commission is in creating new trails or expanding existing trails. And I think one of the things that we've grappled with is how can we do the work in a way that is responsive to community members rather than trying to claim some kind of role as the driver of the work. And so I thought your presentation was really helpful in understanding the dynamic nature of this kind of trail making, right? So it sounds like you began with a group of people who really wanted to mark some places that are of significance to the story of women's history in Boston, and that you then leaned into developing sort of partners in different neighborhoods, different communities. It looks like you use schools in particular as a primary vehicle for kind of organizing interest in this. But I guess I would love to hear you speak to that particular challenge and how the commission can most effectively seed interest without taking responsibility for driving this, right? How can we continue to be in a place where we're responsive to and serving community partners while also recognizing that we may have a role to play in getting things started in some places?
Right. Well, I think it's a great question. And I think that we had these kind of built-in community, so to speak, of the schools. As we've expanded, we're certainly very, very committed to continuing to work with schools and to deepen that work. But as, for instance, the Cedar Grove project, one of the reasons we've enlisted Equa Holmes, the artist, is precisely for this reason, to using a very skilled artist who's very, very good at community engagement and has a lot of legitimacy with various communities and in Dorchester and Roxbury, Mattapan in particular, of she knows how to like work with the group to brainstorm the ideas of, because we don't know what we're going to come up with. That's the other thing. I think there has to be have somebody, lived in Dorchester since '82, and there's like pretend community engagement and there's real community engagement, and there's the pretend is that whoever's coming in, they already know what they want. They're just trying to get you to agree to that. I think authentic community engagement is that you actually really do not know what the thing is going to look like, that you actually are interested in people's opinions and they're really going to shape it. And then that's very iterative and organic and affirming that, oh, they're actually listening to us. So I don't know what we're going to do in the end, but I know that really, I think it does help to have an artist involved. Just because the artist, artists just have to. They're very scared, or not everyone, but this particular artist. And there's some others as well. The folks who are doing murals, for instance. I mean, the murals you can put a mural in a neighborhood and it would just be an absolute disaster. Everyone hates it and they had nothing to do with it. Or you can really enlist people in the design and what do they want. And I mean, we have I live in Upham's Corner. We have a really fantastic mural that we actually don't want it to come down, but they're going to put it in the library. We want the library, but how do we keep the mural? So that's what you want, is that kind of yeasty investment of neighbors in their surroundings. And I think one of the things that we've been really dedicated to by having these trails all over the city is that the history is everywhere. I mean, just taking Upham's Corner as an example, the North Dorchester Burial Ground is there, and it's surrounded by billboards. So I want it to be like, if you lived in Lexington, that would never happen. People would not put up with it. in that North Dorchester Burial Ground, when it's open sometimes, and I actually have the code if you want to go in. But in there are, what do they call them, those gravestones, and it'll say a child, I'm gonna forget her name, I'm sorry, but a little girl's name, and it will say, and it says under slave. And for most people walking down the street on Columbia Road, they don't think about, probably 10% of colonial Boston was enslaved, or it's just people don't think about it or know about it. But how do you make that history jump out to people and make it their own? There's also, there's other fabulous stories everywhere, and as you all are committed to history, so you know that. But how do we work with it?
One of the ways is that we have an unusually strong network of historical societies in Boston, which I'm sure you know from the Bostonian Society, but there's Roxbury, Dorchester, every community has a really active, and I think they would be a really good place to start as to what do they see as missing, what do they want to bring focus on in their community. And we used to have, we used to have at least once a year a meeting of the historical societies too, where people brainstormed about themselves, about what they've been doing and shared what they've been doing. I don't know if we had one last year, but anyway, I think it's unusual that Boston has such strong neighborhood historical societies.
Thank you.
And a strong network of neighborhood groups who feel strongly about their neighborhoods. So that's the other group, is the contemporary, but how it impacts.
Thanks. I have a follow-up question, but Ferris has had his hand up, so I'll defer there and jump back in later.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. I enjoyed that presentation. I don't really have a question, just maybe a collaboration. I noticed that there was no Indigenous women on this trail.
Thank you.
Which is really unfortunate, because
Yes.
Squaw Sockham was so important to the success of the Bay Colony. But she has fallen off of history, and we believe that it's long overdue that she's honored for the contributions that she made to her own people and the success of the Bay Colony. I guess I do have a question.
You have answered my prayer.
We could use some help with that. She's actually on the Charlestown Trail and on the Women Feeding Boston Trail. There's some Indigenous women, but we've gotten pushback on how to express it and how to put it up there and what people should be called. So we would like to.
We'd love to work with you.
We'd like to know about that. If you could help us with that would be great.
Absolutely.
So who's talking? We can't see who's talking. John?
I'm sorry, this is Ferris Gray from the Massachusetts Tribe.
Oh, okay.
Hi, thank you.
All right, so we can
I can connect you guys.
find out how to work with you.
Yes, I can connect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Great.
please.
I'll do that.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Please take a look at Charlestown and Women Feeding Boston and see what you think of our entries and how they could be improved
And also other Indigenous women.
Right.
Totally with you.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
And in fact, we
You're
just
welcome.
actually
Thank you.
wrote a grant to get help with research to have more Indigenous, Latina women, Asian,
Oh.
everybody. So we're on the case with you, but we'd love to work with
We
you.
need some help.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I will connect you guys via email after this.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Nat.
Right. Thanks. So I think the follow-up question that I had really was just to pick your brains more about how to stimulate growth. So if we have, this commission is charged with both thinking about 2026 and 2030, and we recognize 2026 is so close that there's only so much that can be accomplished then. If we said, as it relates to trails, we want to do something for 2026 that will help to spawn more work that can be brought forward for the city's 400th in 2030. How would you think about that? Just hearing you talk about this, it seems like it's you've had these moments where you've had impact and that's drawn others in, and then you've been off to the races with the next step. So help us think about like what might be most valuable that we could target for 2026 that could get people all across the city interested in how to lean in on trails and mark their own neighborhood's history.
Well, one of our challenges is just because we've been this all volunteer organization for 33 years, just people don't know about us. So because when they know about us, they're like, oh, that's interesting. And so the stickers have been a relatively inexpensive way for us to introduce. So I think that, and we already have the art designed. So if there's other ways to use the existing stickers that we have, a bus stop, PSAs, bus stops, kiosks. Had a great conversation this morning with Artists for Humanity with Anna and Yolanda about trying to go together and for a grant up for 2030 around at Massport with the airport, all these and the cruise port. I guess next year is the first time we're having 15,000 people get off a boat. So how do we get them to go on the trails? We've I think this is maybe a follow-up conversation as well, but that's very much and
Are you familiar with the Grove Hall banners? That project, there's 100 women celebrated in banners throughout Grove Hall along Blue Hill Ave.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about over the decades is banners, things that and I've seen them from light poles. I've also seen them on temporarily projected onto walls, things like that, that just grab people's attention like the stickers would as people are walking around, things that could bring it center front as they're shopping at CVS or whatever. But yeah, we'd have to have a future conversation to brainstorm about. And of course, there's always the schools and the universities. So a lot of, like Carol and Dr. Crockett's project with MIT on the Home for Aging Colored Women brought in all her students and gave us a great boost. So, yeah.
So maybe if you just put our email in the chat, just put Meg at bwht.org.
Yeah, I'll put our.
We'll
I will do that now.
A lot of our events and things that we've done have been sort of spontaneous from meetups and things like that. So when you ask us, well, how would we plan it? I think, well, we get an idea and we run with it. So it's exciting to think that we would sit down and plan it, because that would be great. That would be better, and that would be more comprehensive. So that would be exciting.
I mean, for instance, the talking statues, I think, have tremendous potential. It was an idea that I was in Charleston and they have them. Meg's
just in South Carolina and comes home with this.
And there they have them. I mean, they're just incredible. They had, there are people I didn't know about who I really should have known about, and people I knew about, but this way they presented it. For instance, the Grimke sisters' house is now a law firm, but then, so I mean, I begged to get in, so I got in, but most people, it's not really open to the public, but there's a kiosk in front, and there it's two actresses are being the sisters. That's how I learned about this talking statue idea. Robert Smalls down on the dock, how he commandeered, he was enslaved and pretended to be the captain of the ship and got the ship out, and his family. It's just an incredible story. People want stories, and they're open to stories, and they're not that expensive to do relative to a statue. Statues are so darn expensive and they're static. So I think things like that. Also, just thinking about other interior spaces, lobbies, libraries, that we could do temporary but interactive exhibits. We were talking about that this morning.
And
as
the
well.
whole social media,
social
media phenomenon to reach the young people. Because we don't want just gray-haired people.
Joan?
My hair's finally gone gray, so I can be part of the club. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was really wonderful to hear more about your work. And about all the work that you've done. My organization was all volunteer for 40 years, so I feel you on how much work that takes. And congratulations on your new ED. I was going to ask, something that's come up in these commission meetings is around, putting up markers, and one, the cost associated with that, but two, the permissions involved. And I'm very intrigued by the sidewalk stickers that you talked about using. My organization back in 2019, we did like a Stonewall 50th anniversary project and ended up getting permission mostly from businesses and gay bars and places like that to put up banners, which was a lot of work and effective and sent people back to our website to learn more. But we had, places where things didn't exist anymore, places where we had no idea who owned it. And there was like a guerrilla chalking thing that some volunteers were doing. Statute of limitations is probably over on that. So I don't know if that was, above board. Anyway.
Well, first of all, thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. And I know that it's just a horrible time right now, and the assault on people, trans people in particular, I don't know, I feel like I'm living in Germany in 1939, so my heart is there. And I do, if you haven't been to the park outside of Stonewall, where the Stonewall Uprising was, there is a talking statue there. So it brings it alive. The genius of the sidewalk stickers was that Sam knew, had an inside scoop, that you don't need a permit. Okay, now having spent 3 years working on getting the darn permit for to put a little plaque like this with a QR code and the Braille and the woman who did the works, the statue, the sculptor on it. I mean, really, literally 3 years of the Arts Commission, the Back Bay Commission, the Friends of the Public Garden. Then the city. I felt like I was Dorothy with, what do I have to bring to you to get it? And that's why I was like, Sam was, well, you can put anything on the sidewalk, and I'm there with you. So I would really, happy we can talk offline too about that, about how we've done that. And Sam really researched which kind of sticker would last the longest and kind of the cost effectiveness of it and so forth. We also, with our QR code, we're tracking how many hits we're getting at which locations, because we're trying to see, sometimes it'll be like, I live opposite the Trotter house, and Minnie Pindell Trotter is on our trail. She should be. She's not on the plaque that the Bostonian Society put up years ago, but we're learning. But she was the publisher, really, of the backbone of The Guardian. Anyway, so we put it in front of her house, but it's not a busy thoroughfare. So we're trying to figure out, well, that compared to, we have one for Rose Kennedy at Ashmont T Station. So, we're just trying to figure out even the locations, but we can just do them as we wish.
Yeah,
but we're happy to help you with that.
I mean, we can talk offline about that, and we can talk about collaborating around queer women in particular.
Yeah,
But
yes.
And I put in the link just as you were talking about social media and reaching out to people. We're doing a Wikipedia edit-a-thon on queer and trans women at the beginning. Actually, I think it's on International Women's Day. So anyway, we should talk more.
Okay, yes, we'd like to.
Thank you so much.
Right, and as we've been doing thematic ones, I'd like to talk to you. We've had an internal conversation about the pros and cons and the complications of doing a queer women trail, in terms of some women who historians believe were queer, but they didn't,
It's
so
the language, it's a whole thing. I have
the whole
anyway,
thing.
we can get coffee.
We definitely want to expand in so many ways. In some ways, we feel like we have only started.
I just had a comment because it sounded like, what you guys were saying, what you were saying about the process of getting, a marker by having to go through Back Bay's Commission and the Arts Commission. A lot of the conversation we have had some conversations about a potential commemoration 250, 400 permit process that's much more streamlined. And so I'd love to get, a sense of how useful that would be. If, you guys were to continue to pursue something in the markers you have to actually get these permits for.
But well, we should think about it. We should talk about it. I mean, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is to think through, is there, well, like in some cities, like in foreign cities, like they, for instance, in Dublin, there's a uniformity to the markers, the historic markers that they have. And ours are very hodgepodgey.
Yep.
And if we, except the Bostonian are those green ones, but then they did them, they're nice, but they haven't really updated them, and there's a lot of places that aren't on there. So I think thinking through the markers, then thinking through the cost of the marker, and to me now, you have to have a marker with a QR code, or you might as well not do a marker, because the QR code it makes it dynamic, you can update it, you can add audio, you could add visual, you could do a film, Corita Kent lived on Marlborough Street, okay? She was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. There was an exhibit at the Fog on her, so there's movies about her. It could be so rich if you were interested, if that was the person that you wanted to learn more about. But we don't even have a marker there, So I think, working with the city to look at our trail and think about which ones. I was at the Kennedy Center recently because my daughter was directing a musical that got shut down by Trump. But in Foggy Bottom, they have a historic trail there, just about the history of Foggy Bottom, which was an African-American community, which I did not know. But they have things on the, basically on the fences, that it's almost like when you go to buy a house and the realtors put the little plastic things on it. So they have that, and they have kids tours, which I think we should do. So you're really, for the younger kids, a scavenger hunt of history. And so, yeah, we're happy to play in this sandbox.
That's great. We should definitely talk about that. We're hoping to put forward a recommendation for a marker program that is standardized, right? And to make it a little easier.
The most complicated part is that the owner of the building has the ultimate say. The city can't just put the marker on someone's house. So like Beacon Hill doesn't want any more markers because there's so many markers. I mean, I understand every building could have a marker. So it's pretty complicated. That's why the banners or the stickers or something to really, some colorful thing to really pep it up, fireworks or whatever it is.
Right, because that's a good example, because even if Corita Kent, if the owner of that building on Marlborough Street wouldn't let it, you could have the banner on this, you guys own the street lamp.
And we have one in Jamaica Plain, the owner didn't want to have, Sylvia Plath lived in Jamaica Plain for 4 years. The first 4 years of her life, and the owner wasn't comfortable with it on their house. So we found a marker that looks like a little belt that's approved by environmental organizations, and it's on the tree. And they said it wouldn't hurt the tree, and there it is. So yeah, there's a lot of creative stuff to do, but I do think also that we really need to move, the talking statues moves us a little bit, but we need to really move more into social media and creating. I mean, my grandson the other day, he wanted to go to the South End because there was a new candy store. Well, he couldn't get in. That line was out the door, and that was just social media. That was just, it just spread. Oh, new candy. So it's exciting to think of 26 and of 30 happening. And so it's great that there's a commission to work on it. It's really good.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Suzanne.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation and all the work you do. I mean, I can't believe that you've done all the things that you've done over the years, and it's all volunteerism. it's amazing. I remember Marie Turley and the Women's Commission being involved. I worked at the Parks Department at the time, so it's just amazing. And I do feel for everyone that's trying to get a sign somewhere. I will say that I just worked with the Historic Burying Grounds Initiative, the Commissions on Disability, Landmarks, and the like to get a sign that says that there's a handicapped accessible entrance to the Granary Burying Ground. And
Oh my God.
it took over I think it took over a year to get that sign.
I totally understand. I wish I didn't, but thank you for doing it.
Well, if we can, as a commission, and Hennessy and Kathy with your leadership and everybody else on the call in Boston, make it easier for the city to mark places and people easier, that would be fantastic. Thank you for all your work.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
for all your
you.
work. And if anybody wants to help get the billboards down surrounding the North Dorchester Burial Ground, that's just a little side magnific, but I really, it just outrages me every day. There's just no, it wouldn't happen if it weren't Dorchester. It just really ticks me off.
That's on Columbia Road, right?
It's on the Columbia and Stoughton. Dudley at Columbia turns into Stoughton, so it's on one side of Stoughton, so it's technically, it's right near Comfort Kitchen, the very famous new restaurant that we have, that Kathy's organization brought to life before she was at the city. So Kathy, I don't know if you're still on there, but but it's just, it gets to the question of what history is worth preserving, and do the people who live in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, I'm just gonna call us out, because do we deserve the same respect of history that if you live on Beacon Hill? I mean, so.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, but it's not always acted out that way. So we have to band together and make it happen. So, okay. You guys know how to get in touch with us.
Yes.
And I really can't wait to be able to introduce you, and we'll get your mailing list and to introduce our new director when we get that finalized.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming. The presentation was great, and it was great to get your insight on all of the work that you guys did and are still doing.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, we're thrilled. Fun. Be more fun in person, but.
Yeah.